taking a look at the market's performance, we had the NSE 20 by the close of the session on Friday, seeing close enough to 2% gains for the week, settling at just above that 4,000 mark. What are you making of market activity that we're seeing right now?
I think, Alishia, at the moment we're seeing a bit of cautious approach in the market. But you're also seeing a bit of foreign activity, huge foreign activity in the market, particularly on industrial counters and also on the banking sector. That's actually been driving the index up. We're actually seeing some of the prices, example KCB still pushing up levels about 25.50. East African breweries up to highs about 182. Clearly, we're actually seeing a lot of interest in these counters from foreigners.
Let's take a look at KCB because we saw, as you say, activity on that counter throughout the week. Strong demand from foreign investors, and that's seeing the counter gain over 5% for the week cumulatively speaking. I've seen an announcement that KCB has come to the fore saying that it would like to clarify that it does not plan to raise Tier 2 capital this year via a domestic bond issue. Market reaction to that news that's now surfaced?
I think the market was not actually participating in that for this financial year. They just did a completed rights issue last year to raise more capital in terms for their expansion business. I don't see that happening this year. People are we're expecting them to raise more money this year in terms of we are looking at them actually reducing on their staff costs, but actually laying off some of their staff. But we may not see that happen. But yet again, if you're looking at in the bank fundamentally, it's actually a good bank in terms of growth.
Well, certainly there's lots of interest in these banking counters ahead of them reporting first quarter results. And we've got Cooperative Bank, just one of those banks in the spotlight. It's pushed up just over 12% to 18 shillings 55 for the course of last week. Your view on Cooperative Bank?
For me, I think Coop Bank is still a good buy. In terms of performance, I actually see it did quite well last financial year. First quarter results for financial sector, I expect them to be quite good, considering that they're riding the profit wave of forex trading. Also, we may see, in terms of Coop Bank, I think in terms of its structure and its loan book has actually grown in the last year. So definitely it's still a good bank to look at, and we may actually see more demand coming in that counter. We actually saw a bit of foreign activity in the counter in the past week, and coming forward in this week, we might actually see more and more demand coming in. So we may see the counter actually pick up to levels of maybe 19 shillings.
With foreign activity so focused on these big cap stocks, the likes of KCB, Equity Bank and Cooperative Bank as well, to what extent are you diverting some attention to some of the mid-tier players that could well boast some appeal?
I think people should also look at the industrial sector. We're actually seeing a boom in the construction industry. We're actually seeing a bit of demand coming in for counters like Athi River Mining, based on the fact that we're actually seeing Athi River Mining take a huge percentage of the cement market away from Bamburi cement. So therefore, we may see some activity on that. We're also seeing some activity on Kenyan. The demand for power clearly exceeds the supply that is there in the market. So we may see some activity on these particular counters. Equally for Kenya Power, we may also see some activities on those counters. I think those are the counters that we may see moving this week. Also Safaricom, a bit of activity coming in on the counter. We saw it trading last week. It traded over 100 million shares. Definitely a bit of demand on that counter, holding at levels about 420, 415. So you may see it actually trade at those levels this week.
Let's take a look at Safaricom because the scales are tipping in either direction here. We've got on the one hand price wars in the telecommunications sector being expected to have a significant impact on earnings, and on the other end we've got M-Pesa and data revenues expected to register strong growth as well. So how are you viewing that scenario right now, and in which direction are those scales tipping for you?
Definitely we'll see a reduction in earnings from the calls that Safaricom make. But the major market that Safaricom has actually hit is the M-Pesa market. These people are actually making a lot of money from the money transfer. If we see other players coming in the market and actually boosting their money transfer services, that may cause a threat to Safaricom. But Safaricom now controls almost 90% of the mobile money transfer. So definitely we see them making more money, particularly from M-Pesa. But in terms of revenues generated from calls, we may see that actually take a dip.
Sticking to the telecommunications area, or that IT space specifically, interesting movement coming through from Access Kenya. It was the week's top gainer last week, sitting at 10 shillings 35. So really climbing above that initial IPO offer of 10 shillings. What are you making of the movement there? Because this has been a stock that's come under severe pressure of late.
Definitely a lot of speculative play on Access Kenya. 2 weeks ago, we were trading at lows of about 7 shillings and 5 cents. And I think some of the speculative investors saw that this is actually, the shares actually hit its bottom. And we may see some room for speculative trading. Thus, we actually saw some demand coming in from 7 shillings up to levels of about 9.30, 9.35. But here again, it's actually strengthening at levels of about 10.30. At 10.50, we're actually seeing a lot of supply coming in, basically from the speculative investors who got in at levels of about 8, 9, looking to take their profits at levels of about 10, 10.50. So we may not see it actually move beyond where it is right now. But yet again, the management had an investor briefing on Friday on the ways that they were looking at the company actually increasing its revenues. They talked of actually expanding their business, acquiring other players in the industry. So those may actually contribute to the share price movement.
In fact, the management saying that they expect their gross margins to grow by at least 10% this financial year. What are you making of the company's growth prospects, where we've just said you've got players like Safaricom becoming fierce contenders in terms of the data space and accessing revenue via that route?
Access Kenya has actually changed its trend of approaching the market. Instead of only approaching corporates, actually also them going and approaching individuals, homes, targeting homes, access at home. Those are the products they're coming up with. They're setting up shops in the major towns to actually target this market. For that's the only way I may see them actually increase their profits. And also in terms of acquiring some of these companies that are players in this market, I think that those are the only ways that they may look at increasing that. Also, I don't know how they are looking at cutting down their costs. They've actually borrowed heavily to finance the fiber optic cable process for them, and that is actually taking a hit on their earnings.